Good evening, everyone. This is Cynthia from cynscraftingworld. Tonight, I continue the werewolf. In a while, she quickened her pace. From the first, Christian had judged her speed as admirable, yet with exulting security in his own excelling and enduring whatever her efforts. But when the pace increased, he found himself put to the test as never had he been before in any race. Her feet, indeed, flew faster than his. It was only by his length of stride that he kept his place at her side, but his heart was high and resolute, and he did not fear failure yet. So the desperate race flew on. Their feet struck up the powdery snow. Their breath smoked into the sharp, clean air, and they were gone before the air was cleared of snow and vapor. Now and then Christian glanced up to judge, by the rising of the stars, of the coming of midnight. So long, so long. White held on without slack. She, it was evident, with confidence in her speed proving matchless, as resolute to outrun her pursuer as he to endure till midnight and fulfill his purpose. And Christian held on, still self-assured. He could not fail. He would not fail. To avenge Rawl and Trella was motive enough for him to do what man could do, but for Sven more. She had kissed Sven, but he should not die too. With Sven to save, he could not fail. Never before was such a race as this. No, not even in old Greece man and maid raced together with two fates at stake. For the hard running was sustained unabated, while star after star rose and went wheeling upward towards midnight, for 1 hour, for 2 hours. Then Christian saw and heard what shot him through with fear. Where a fringe of trees hung round a slope, he saw something dark moving, and heard a yelp, followed by a full horrid cry, and the dark spread out upon the snow, a pack of wolves in pursuit. Of the beasts alone he had little cause for fear. At the pace he held, he could distance them, 4-footed though they were. But of White Fell's wiles he had infinite apprehension, for how might she not avail herself of the savage jaws of these wolves, akin as they were to her nature? She vicious fed to look them nor to sign, but Christian, on an impulse, to assure himself that she should not escape him, caught and held the back-flung edge of her furs, still running still. She turned like a flash with a beastly snarl, teeth and eyes gleaming again. Her axe shone on the upstroke, on the downstroke, as she hacked at his hand. She had lopped it off at the wrist, but that parried with the bear spear. Even then she shore through the shaft and shattered the bones of the hand at the same blow, so that he loosed perforce. Then again they raced as before, Christian not losing a pace, though his left hand swung useless, bleeding and broken. The snarl inaudible, though modified from a woman's organs, the vicious fury revealed in teeth and eyes, the sharp, arrogant pain of her maiming blow caught away Christian's heed of the beasts behind, by striking into him close, vivid realization of the infinitely greater danger that ran before him in that deadly thing. When he bethought him to look behind, lo, the pack had but reached their tracks, and instantly slunk aside, cowed, and yelled of pursuing, changing to yelps and whines, so abhorrent as that fell creature to beast as to man. She had drawn her furs more closely to her, disposing them so that, instead of flying loose to her heels, no drapery hung lower than her knees, and this without check to her wonderful speed nor embarrassment of the cumbering of the folds. She held her head as before. Her lips were firmly set. Only the tense nostrils gave her breath. not a sign of distress witnessed to the long sustaining of that terrible speed. But on Christian by now, the strain was telling palpably. His head weighed heavy, and his breath came laboring in great sobs. The bare spear would have been a burden now. His heart was beating like a hammer, but such a dullness oppressed his brain that it was only by degrees he could realize his helpless state, wounded and weaponless, chasing that terrible thing that was a fierce, desperate, axe-armed woman, except she should assume the beast with fangs yet more formidable. And still, the far slow stars went lingering nearly for an hour from midnight. So far his brain astray that an impression took him that she was fleeing from the midnight stars. Those gain was by such slow degrees that at the time equaling days and days had gone in the race around the northern circle of the world, and days as long might last before the end, except she slackened, or except he failed. But he would not yet fail. How long had he been praying so? He had started with the self-confidence and reliance that had felt no need for that aid, and now it seemed the only means by which to restrain his heart from swelling beyond the compass of his body, by which to cherish his brain from dwindling and shriveling quite away. Some sharp-toothed creature kept tearing and dragging on his maimed left hand. He never would see it. He could not shake it off, but he prayed it off at times. The clear stars before him took to shuddering, and he knew why. They shudder at the sight of what was behind him. He had never divined before that strange things hid themselves from men under the pretense of being snow-clad mounds or swaying trees. But now they came slipping out from their harmless covers to follow him, and mock at his impotence to make a kindred thing resolved to truer form. He knew the air behind him was thronged. He heard the hum of innumerable murmurings together, but his eyes could never catch them. They were too swift and nimble, yet he knew they were there, because on the backward glance he saw the snow mounds surge as they grovelled flattenings out of sight. He saw the trees reel as they screwed themselves rigid past recognition among the boughs. After such a glance, the stars for a while returned to steadfastness, and an infinite stretch of silence froze upon the chill grey world, only deranged by the swift, even beat of the flying feet of his own, slower from the longer stride and the sound of his breath. And for some clear moments he knew that his only certain concern was to sustain his speed regardless of pain and distress, to deny with every nerve he had the power to outstrip him, or to widen the pace between them, till the stars crept up to midnight. Then out again would come that crowd invisible, humming and hustling behind, dense and dark enough, he knew, to blot out the stars at his back, yet ever skipping and jerking from his sight. A hideous check came to the race. White fell swirled about the leap to the right, and Christian, unprepared for so prompt a lurch, found close at his feet a deep pit yawning, and his own impetus past control. But he snapped at her as he bore past, clasping her right arm with his one whole hand, and the two swung together upon the brink. And her straining away in self-preservation was vigorous enough to counterbalance his headlong impulse, and brought them reeling together to safety. Then, before he was verily sure that they were not to perish so, crashing down, he saw her gnashing in wild, pale fury, as she retched to be free, and since her right hand was in his grasp, used her axe left-handed, striking back at him. The blow was effectual enough even so. His right arm dropped powerless, gashed, and with lesser bone broken, that jarred with horrid pain when he let it swing as he leapt out again, and ran to recover the few feet she gained from the pause at the shock. The near escape, this new quick pain, made every faculty alive and intense. He knew what he followed was most surely death animate. Wounded and helpless, he was utterly at the mercy if she so should realize and take action. Hopeless to avenge, hopeless to save, his very despair for Sven swept him on to follow and proceed at the kiss doomed to death. Could he yet fail to hunt that thing past midnight, out of the womanly form alluring and treacherous into lasting restraint of the bestial, which was the last shred of hope left from confinement purpose of the outset? Sven, Sven, oh Sven, he thought he was praying, though his heart wrung out nothing but this: Sven, Sven, oh Sven. The last hour from midnight had lost half its quarters, and the stars went lifting up the great minutes, and again his greatening heart, and his shrinking brain, and the sickening agony that swung at either side, conspired to appall the will that had only seeming empire over his feet. Now Whitefell's body was so closely enveloped that not a lap nor an edge flew free. She stretched forward strangely excellent, leaning from the upright poise of a runner. She cleared the ground at times by long bounds, gaining an increase of speed that Christian agonized to equal. Because the stars pointed that the end was nearing, the black brood came behind again and followed, noising. If they could but keep quiet and still, nor slip their usual harness masks to encourage with their interest the last speed of the most deadly congener. What shape had they? Should he ever know? If it were not that he was bound to compel the fell thing that ran before him into her truer form, he might face about and follow them. No, no, not so. If he might do anything but what he did, race, and racing bear this agony, he would just stand still and die, to be quit of pain and breathing. He grew bewildered, uncertain of his own identity, doubting of his own true form. He could not really be a man, no more than a running thing was really a woman. His real form was only hidden under embodiment of a man, but what it was he did not know. And Sven's real form he did not know. Sven lay fallen at his feet where he had struck him down, his own brother. He stumbled over him and had to overlap him and race harder because he who had kissed Sven leapt so fast. Sven, Sven, oh Sven! Why did the stars stop to shudder? Midnight else had surely come. Then leaping thing looked back at him with wild, fierce look, and laughed in savage scorn and triumph. He saw a flash why, for within a time measurable by seconds, she would have escaped him utterly, as the land lay a slope of ice sunk on one hand, and the other hand a steep rose, shouldering forwards between the two, with space for a foot to be planted, but none for a body to stand. Yet a juniper bough, thrusting out, gave a handhold secure enough for one with a resolute grasp to swing past the perilous place and pass on safe. Though the first seconds of the last moment were going, she dared to flash back a wicked look and laugh at her pursuer, who was impotent to grasp. The crisis struck convulsive life into his last supreme effort. His will surged to indomitable. His speed proved matchless yet. He leapt with a rush, passed before her, laugh had time to go out, and he turned short, bearing the way, and braced to withstand her. She came hurling, desperate, with a feint to the right hand, and then launched herself upon him with a spring like a wild beast when it leaps to kill. And he, with one strong arm and hand that could not hold, with one strong hand and arm that could not guide and sustain, he caught and held her even so, and they fell together. And because he fell, his whole arm slipping, and his whole hand loosening, To slack the dreadful agony of the wrenched bone above, he caught and held with his teeth the tunic at her knee, as she struggled up and wrung off his hands to overleap him victorious. Like lightning she snatched her axe and struck him on the neck. Deep once, twice his life blood gushed out, staining her feet. The stars touched midnight. The death scream he heard was not his, for his set teeth had hardly yet relaxed when it rang out, and the dreadful cry began with a woman's shriek, and changed and ended as the yell of a beast, and before the final blank overtook his dying eyes, he saw that she gave place to it. He saw more, that life gave place to death, causelessly, incomprehensibly, for he did not presume that no holy water could be more holy than more potent to destroy an evil thing than the lifeblood of pure heart poured over another in a free-willing devotion. His own true hidden reality that he had desired to know grew palpable, recognizable. It seemed to him just this, a great glad abounding hope that he had saved his brother, too expanse to be contained by the limited form of a soul man. It yearned for a new embodiment, infinite as the stars. What did it matter to that true reality of the man's brain shrank, till it was nothing, and the man's body could not retain a huge pain of his heart, and heaved it out through the red exit riven at his neck, that the black noise came again, hurtling from behind, reinforced by that dissolved shape, and bottled out for every man's sight, hearing, sense. I'm going to be keeping it short tonight. With that, I will leave you for tonight. Have a good rest of the night, and tomorrow we shall see what happens. Good night.